Does the state wish to make an opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may.
Your Honor, may I please reposition the courtroom?
You may.
Thank you. May it please the court? Members of the jury. A killer. The word brings up negative connotations, doesn't it? In fact, the English dictionary defines a killer as a person who fatally harms others intentionally. During this trial, the evidence will show that Joe Mitchell is a killer. Evidence will show that he had the means, the ability, the knowledge, and most importantly, the motive to kill our victim, Leslie Thompson Mitchell. On September 2nd, 2002, Leslie was celebrating. She had just turned 25 years old. She celebrated with her stepmother, who gave her a ring as a present, and later that evening, she went to the movies, which was something nice to do on your birthday. She later walked home, and after realizing she lost her house key, she rang the doorbell. Her stepmother, Brooke Thompson, answered the door, but Leslie never made it inside that house. At that point, they both heard tires squeal from the end of the driveway. There was Joe Mitchell's car, a white Pontiac. And from that car, a shot was fired, killing Leslie on her 25th birthday. You are going to hear testimony from Brooke Thompson. She will tell you that she saw Joe in that car that night, and that he was the one who shot her stepdaughter. You'll see from the evidence that Leslie was shot with the exact same type of gun that Joe Mitchell owns. You'll hear from multiple witnesses that what a good shot Joe was, something he repeatedly stated himself. And most importantly, you will see evidence of Joe's anger towards Leslie. You'll see a letter he wrote her not 24 hours before the murder occurred that said, "I'm going to make you regret what you did to me if it's the last thing I do." Now, the defense would like you to believe that Joe couldn't have killed Leslie because he was at home listening to the radio. They even have a witness who will say that she saw him at her boarding house before and after the time of the murder. But what the defense won't tell you is that this witness has a criminal history of doing favors for her boarders. The defense would also like you to believe that it was Brooke Thompson who stood to gain the most from her stepdaughter's death. They want you to think that this woman, who raised Leslie since she was 6, who fed her, clothed her, sheltered her, and sent her to the best private schools, who Leslie herself called mother, was the one that murdered Leslie. Members of the jury, this simply isn't possible. Brooke Thompson had her own income and loved her stepdaughter as much as her own. She will tell you so on the witness stand. You will see that she had no desire or need to kill Leslie. Members of the jury, this is why we're here today, to bring justice, to show that murder is inexcusable in the eyes of the law. Although there is nothing we can do for Leslie, we can't bring her back to life. We can bring a small comfort to her grieving family, her broken-hearted stepmother, and her mourning friends. This small comfort we can give them is by putting the killer where he belongs. And where Joe Miller belongs is in jail. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel.
Does the defense wish to make an opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may.
Permission to reposition the courtroom?
Sure.
May it please the court?
Yes.
Counsel? Members of the jury? I am here today on behalf of Joe Mitchell, the defendant in this case. As you may already know, In the United States, the prosecution has the burden of proving the guilt of the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt, and unless and until that burden is met, you must, as jury members, presume that the defendant, Joe Mitchell, is innocent. Members of the jury, Joe Mitchell, members of the jury, the prosecution has not met that burden in this case, as Joe Mitchell did not kill his wife. If you were to convict Joe Mitchell, you would not only be leaving the true murderer on the streets, but you would be sending an innocent man to prison. On the morning of September 10th, 2002, Joe Mitchell had a plan, and that plan had two parts to it. Number one, he was going to share great news with his wife, Leslie Thompson, the victim in this case. Joe had received an offer from a publisher to publish his writing, and the second part of that plan was Joe Mitchell was going to deliver a birthday gift, a 5-pound box of candy wrapped in all that Joe could afford, newspaper. Now this was a big opportunity for Joe. For 2 months before this, Leslie had been living at her stepmother's house, Brooke Thompson. Leslie had told Joe that she would come back if he promised, if he would get a job. So, Leslie, this would have been great for both parties. Leslie would have been happy because Joe had a job, and Joe would have been happy because he would have been doing what he loved most, writing. Joe had every reason on September 10th, 2002 to celebrate. At 7:30 p.m., Joe went to deliver the good news to the victim, Leslie Thompson Mitchell, and to deliver the birthday gift. He rang the doorbell. Brooke Thompson answered the door. She told Joe Mitchell that Leslie had gone to the movies at the Palace Theater. Joe went to the Palace Theater and bought a ticket, went into the movies, and waited an entire hour before he decided to leave. He went to the bar, he spent some time there, and he decided to go home after having a few drinks. On his way home, he stopped at the gun store to pick up his .38 caliber revolver that he dropped off to have cleaned and repaired. Joe then went home. At approximately 9:40, anytime between 9:40 and 9:55, Joe arrived at his house. His landlord, Miss Porter, heard him pull up at the house. She actually saw him running from his car in the rain up to his room. Miss Porter did not hear Joe leave his room until 10:30 that evening. Now, precisely at 10 p.m., Brooke Thompson heard the doorbell ring, and it was Leslie Thompson at the door. Brooke Thompson opened the door. Brooke Thompson says that she saw Joe driving down the street in his white Pontiac, that Joe stopped in front of the street, leaned out the window, pointed his .38 caliber revolver at Leslie Thompson and fired a shot. This shot, Brooke Thompson says, caused the